The situation at the Fukushima nuclear plant is much worse than we've been told. This is SkyWatchTV for Tuesday, December 15th, 2015. I'm Derek Gilbert. Just weeks after completion of a half-mile-long retaining wall, a wall that is already slightly leaning, Tokyo Electric Power Company officials admit that radiation levels in tunnels beneath the damaged nuclear plant are 4,000 times higher than they were 1 year ago. The retaining wall was intended to slow the flow of radioactive water from underneath the plant into the ocean from 400 tons per day to about 10 tons per day. There's another problem, though. About 300 tons of water per day floods into the area beneath the damaged plant from the surrounding hills. So TEPCO's been working on Plan B, which is a giant ice wall all the way around the damaged plant. They believe that by freezing the soil down to a depth of about 100 feet, they can minimize the amount of water that floods into and out of the radioactive pools beneath the damaged reactors. The problem is engineers haven't yet been able to cool the ground far enough to actually freeze the water. We're also finding out that officials knew things were this bad 4 years ago, but didn't go out of their way to tell us. A declassified report by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Agency, written just 1 week after the tsunami hit Fukushima, reveals that our government knew then that all of the spent fuel from reactor number 4 was released into the atmosphere. Now, how much is that? More than was released by all 800 above-ground nuclear weapons tests in history. Political correctness is deadly. Because the government of the United States doesn't want to profile any particular religion and offend its members, Immigration and Customs Enforcement may be the only organization in the world that doesn't bother to check social media when reviewing applicants' paperwork. If it had, might have kept one of the San Bernardino shooters out of the country, Tashfeen Malik. Former Homeland Security told ABC News that a secret government policy prevents immigration investigators from reviewing social media messages when reviewing visa applications. John Cohen, who's the former acting undersecretary at DHS for Intelligence and Analysis, told ABC News that immigration officials had asked Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson for new policies that would allow them to look at online messages from applicants. Johnson refused, apparently afraid of a civil liberties backlash and bad press for the Obama administration. So Tashfeen Malik passed 3 background checks and got her K-1 fiancé visa in only 3 weeks' time, in spite of multiple posts online about wanting to commit violent jihad. Now, another program that might have prevented the San Bernardino attack was shut down in 2012 by the State Department and Department of Homeland Security's Civil Rights Division. Philip Haney, a founding member of the DHS back in 2003, said that the intelligence review unit that he was part of had identified a network of potential jihadists in the United States. Well, he was told that tracking those jihadists was problematic because they happened to be Muslims, and that profiling Muslims might be offensive to Muslims. The kicker is that after the IRU was shut down and dozens of his files were deleted, the record that the mosque in Southern California that Syed Farouk had attended, which had been flagged for links to overseas terrorist organizations, was, of course, erased. So Haney said that if the program had been allowed to continue, either Farouk would have been on a no-fly list and prevented from flying overseas to meet Malik, or Malik's visa application would have been denied. Now, Donald Trump has taken a lot of criticism for his suggestion that we put a moratorium on Muslim immigration until we figure out our procedures for allowing people into the country. One of the more interesting critics, Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. Prince Al-Walid is one of the wealthiest men in the world. He's also one of the biggest investors in News Corp, which is the parent company of Fox News. Al-Walid called Donald Trump a disgrace. Now, bear in mind that Prince Al-Walid bin Talal is a member of the royal family of a country that officially has zero Christian citizens. Now, that's not realistic. There are probably close to 1 million, 1.5 million, but officially 0. And Muslims who convert can be put to death. Saudi Arabia is also a country that's building a 600-mile-long high-tech border fence to keep out Muslim immigrants from Iraq who might be fleeing the fighting there, because some of them might be members of the Islamic State who want to come into Saudi Arabia and kill people. Donald Trump might be a disaster as a president. I'm not carrying any water for Mr. Trump, but the more criticism he takes from people like Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, the higher his poll numbers are going to go. Jews for Jesus are just a little bit upset with Pope Francis. An official document released by the Vatican last week declared that Roman Catholics should not try to convert Jews to Christianity. In that document, the Vatican acknowledges that Christianity is rooted in Judaism, and so Roman Catholics are obliged to view the evangelization of Jews differently from that to people of other religions. Well, David Brickner, who's the executive director of Jews for Jesus, criticized the Vatican for ignoring the Great Commission, which, of course, is where Jesus called in his followers to preach the gospel to all people. Brickner also pointed out that there would be no Roman Catholic Church if the gospel message hadn't been spread by Jews who were for Jesus. Or to put it another way, witnessing to Jews is like literally the entire ministry of Jesus during his time on earth. One final story, and this is going to take a bit of time. And in fact, this story prompted me to come back into the studio and re-record this entire update because, again, I don't think I got it right the first time. It's easy to get caught up in the shock value of this next story and miss the big picture because the story isn't this story, it's what this story represents. It's another example of the growing war against the order of God's creation. Last week, a number of mainstream media sources reported that a 53-year-old man in Toronto left his wife of 27 years and their 7 children to live as a female. A fairly typical transgender story so far, except that he's not content to live as a woman, he wants to live, and is living, as a 6-year-old girl. I thought this story was a hoax at first, but sadly, I'm sorry to say, I was wrong. Paul Walsh, who now prefers to be called Stephanie, and that's Stephanie with a K, came out as transgender about 6 years ago, and reportedly, his wife asked him to either stop it or move out. Now, I've only read his side of that story. There may be more to it than that. In fact, I did some more research on this story last night, and there's a lot that I can't get into here because, frankly, it's not appropriate for this broadcast. But even if this is a correct and accurate account, I can't say that I would blame his wife. I mean, I love Sharon. I know she loves me. But after 18 years of marriage, if I were to come to her and say, I've decided to live the rest of my life as a woman, I have no doubt, and she would be perfectly correct, in asking me to find other accommodations for the rest of my life, because I would, in a very real sense, no longer be the man she had married. So Mr. Walsh, now out on his own, went looking for a family that would accommodate his desire to live out the childhood that he apparently feels he was denied. And he found an adoptive family. He is now living with this adoptive family and playing with the grandchildren of his new mommy and daddy. If this creeps you out, it probably should. He spends his time advocating for transgender causes on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and playing with dollies. Now, to be fair to LGBT activists, many of them are not very happy with the idea of Mr. Walsh being their poster child, as it were. Frankly, feminists are also very unhappy with Mr. Walsh because here you've got a 53-year-old man, 6'2", 270 or thereabouts, passing himself off as an oppressed woman. Actual oppressed women are a bit upset about that. Anyway, a transgender movement, not really happy with him as their poster child because being transgender is one thing, but being transgender and trans child is something else. And frankly, it's ridiculous. There are good reasons, and I think we can agree it's in the public interest, that we don't allow 6-year-olds to drive, drink scotch, or play with loaded firearms. But the mainstream media, and this is the story, the mainstream media that picked up his tale, for the most part, gave Mr. Walsh a pass on most of these things. and portrayed him as a victim, trying to build a new life after the trauma of being separated from his family, his children. Frankly, when one is building a new life or describes himself as building a new life, it's often because he's dumped the responsibilities of his old life onto someone else. Now, I think an even more important point here, and as much as the LGBT activists will reject this, is that Stephanie Walsh, the former Paul Walsh, is the unavoidable product of transgender logic. You see, when you decouple identity from any and all objective definitions, not to mention decoupling identity from science, biology, and you claim that gender, race, as in the case of Rachel Dolezal, and now even age are just psychological constructs that are forced on us by society, by our parents as children, and that we have the power to redefine ourselves in identify as anyone or anything that we choose, independent of any rationale other than because I want to, then the LGBT movement has no objective basis on which to object to Mr. Walsh representing their movement. In other words, LGBT activists, you created this. Now you own it. Paul Walsh's story is actually fairly simple. He's a man in need of help. And instead of help, he's found enablers. And he's being held up as a role model in some circles. More importantly, of course, like all of us, he needs Christ. But again, the real story here is the mainstream media reporting on his case without calling his delusion or his fetish for what it is, without even being able to correctly identify his gender. So I'm sorry, as I said about Caitlyn Jenner before, if you want to identify yourself with a name that is typically used by females, that's fine. I spent years in broadcasting, knew plenty of people who used professional names. I used professional names for part of my radio career. Nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't change the basic fact of who or what you are. And the media, mainstream media, in accounts consistently referred to Mr. Walsh as she. This is more evidence, in my view, that we are witnessing the powers, principalities, cosmic rulers of this present darkness trying to deconstruct God's design for humanity. Remember, in the beginning created he them male and female, not male and or female, or male and or female and or other, male and female. But liberals here in the West are buying the lie. And honestly, this type of radical self-redefinition is where the LGBT movement is going to find common cause and allies within the transhumanist movement. Tonight on SkyWatchTV, we address one of the big mysteries of 20th century America, the creation of the Georgia Guidestones. They've been called America's Stonehenge. What does the cryptic message mean on these stones? And who is the mysterious R.C. Christian who commissioned the creation of this gigantic granite monument sitting near Elberton, Georgia? Chris Pinto of Adullam Films is the producer and director of the documentary film Dark Clouds Over Elberton, and he's our guest tonight on SkyWatch TV at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Christian Television Network. That's 9:30 p.m. UTC-5 if you're outside the United States. If you've got satellite TV, the Christian Television Network airs on DirecTV Channel 376, Dish Network Channel 267, and the Glory Star Satellite Channel 117. It also streams live to the internet. The Christian Television Network's web stream is available at their website, ctnonline.com. For your gift of any amount during the month of December while supplies last, some holiday-themed gifts, the novel Ebenezer, The Final Years of Scrooge by Donna Howell, also the co-author of the book Redeemed Unredeemable. 3 hours of Christmas music, Latin, Celtic, and African. the World Christmas Collection, a $30 value, and a keepsake ornament for your tree. Your gifts from us in exchange for your gift of financial support in any amount. U.S. residents only, please, to SkyWatch TV, and directions on how to give posted at skywatchtv.com. And when I have a random thought that I feel compelled to share with the world, you find them here, Twitter, Facebook, and my website. And if you've got questions, comments, or suggestions for me, please send those to dgilbert at skywatchtv.com. Thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV. The holidays are on us, and this Christmas, SkyWatch TV can help you give the gift of preparedness to the ones you love.
How better to show your love to your family than to buy something that will help them when their electricity goes out, when everything fails, and we all know that there's a possibility of that happening. This is the time to buy, because if you go to our store, you'll find the Buy This, Get That Free special. And trust me, the Buy This items, they're already discounted, so you're going to save money on that. And you get a wonderful item in addition, free.
That's right. Go to skywatchtvstore.com and look for the Christmas specials. Now, as a news junkie, I'm really excited about some of the crank radios. When times get tough and you need to know what's going on.
Are they just for cranks?
Well, it's perfect for me then, because you can, without batteries, be able to find out exactly what's going on. They're crank radios, including a two-way radio, so you can communicate with friends and family in an emergency.
I think that's incredible. We've got a hand crank radio at home that we use a lot. I hope it never happens, but more than likely the day's going to come. Even if it's just a power outage from a storm, you're going to need something to hear the weather on. We've got seed kits, emergency ration kits, Berkey water filters. I mean, it's all the things you wanted to get for prepping and you wanted to save money, or you want to give to your family members. Now's the time to buy.
And many of those seed kits are heirloom seeds, the kind of things that you don't typically get when you go to the store to buy seeds. Seeds that you can basically, when the plant ripens, you can save some of those seeds and plant them again next year.
You can. It's almost a buy once, have them forever sort of thing, if you just save from year to year. And they're non-GMO.
Exactly. Plenty of other items in the store, including more information, books that tell you about how to prepare and plan for times that are troublesome. And certainly that would describe the age we're living in right now.
Buy this. Get that free. You gotta love it.
Yep. Give the gift of preparedness this holiday season. SkyWatch TV, skywatchtvstore.com. And again, Merry Christmas from SkyWatch TV.